He wasn't supposed to be a striker. He wasn't supposed to be a genius. But from the moment Bruno Fernandes laced his first pair of boots, he wasn't meant to be ordinary. Born in Maia, Portugal, Bruno grew up in a world where football wasn't just a game. It was survival. Talent was nothing without hunger. And Bruno was hungry, always observing, always calculating, always one step ahead in his mind, even when his feet hadn't caught up yet. As a young professional, his first real stop was Novara in Italy. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't a headline. It was the kind of place where careers can die quietly. But Bruno didn't just survive, he learned. In the Italian lower leagues, surrounded by defenders who treated every challenge like a war, he discovered something essential. Football is won in the mind long before it's won on the pitch. From Novara, he moved to Udinese, a bigger stage, tougher battles, sharper expectations. He wasn't dominant yet, but he was dangerous. Every pass had intention. Every move felt like a question sent to the defense. Are you ready for what comes next? Then came Sampdoria, and with it, a turning point. Suddenly, Bruno was playing with confidence, urgency, and a kind of voice on the pitch that demanded attention. He wasn't just reacting, he was dictating. But still, critics asked the same question. Can he sustain this? Can he be the main man? And Bruno answered the way he always does. Not with talk, but with performance. Then came Sporting CP, a name that changed everything. In Portugal, Bruno didn't just play, he exploded. For Sporting, he became the heartbeat of the team. In over 100 appearances, he scored more than 60 goals and created countless moments that dragged defenses out of balance. These weren't easy goals. These were statements. Penalties under pressure, long-range strikes, last-minute winners. But what made this period unforgettable wasn't just the numbers. It was how he carried Sporting in every intense game, every derby, every cup final. He didn't just dominate, he demanded to be the focal point. Still, Europe was watching. They weren't just seeing goals and assists, they were seeing something rarer. Decision-making under pressure. Leadership baked into every touch, every run, every glance before he passed or shot. Then came the calls. The clubs with bigger names, bigger stages, bigger expectations. And the call that changed everything was from Manchester United, a club desperate for identity, direction, and leadership. Bruno didn't arrive as a savior. He arrived as a problem solver. From his first games at Old Trafford, something shifted. United's midfield went from reactive to proactive, from hopeful to commanding. Bruno wasn't just scoring, he was shaping the game. The team's tempo shifted the moment he stepped on the pitch. Suddenly, opportunities weren't just created, they were engineered. Fans didn't just watch games anymore, they waited for his touch. But with success came questions. Could he carry this burden every week? Could he do it against the toughest defenses in Europe? Was he simply a penalty taker or a complete midfielder in every sense? And then the big nights came. Champions League pressure, games where the margin between genius and failure was thinner than a blade. Bruno didn't shy away. He stood taller. His goals and assists piled up. Not perfectly smooth, there were frustrations, missed chances, moments where the expectations weighed heavy, but always the urgency, the hunger. These numbers weren't pretty. They were meaningful. At United, in less than 100 appearances, he'd scored nearly 50 goals and created even more chances for his teammates. Figures that don't just catch the eye, they demand respect. But football isn't static. The game changes. Opponents adapt. Defenses study patterns, and suddenly the easy questions die and the hard ones rise. Pressure doesn't arrive all at once. It builds slowly. At Manchester United, Bruno Fernandes quickly became more than just a player. He became a reference point. When the team struggled, they looked for him. When the game stalled, the ball found him. When belief dropped, responsibility landed on his shoulders. And that kind of role changes everything. Defenders adapted. Midfields pressed him tighter. Criticism became louder. Every misplaced pass was analyzed. Every missed chance was replayed. Every reaction, arms raised, frustration shown, was judged. Some called it passion, others called it a flaw. But numbers don't lie. Season after season at United, Bruno remained among the team's top contributors. Goals from midfield. Assists created under pressure. Chances built from nothing. In multiple campaigns, he finished as one of the Premier League's most productive midfielders, not forwards, midfielders. That distinction matters, because Bruno doesn't play the game safely. He risks. He forces decisions. He attempts passes others don't even see. And risk always comes with cost. There were games when it didn't work. Big nights when United fell short. Moments when leadership was questioned rather than praised. But even then, Bruno never disappeared. He kept asking for the ball, kept demanding movement, kept playing forward when backward felt safer. That mentality defined him. While systems changed, managers rotated, and teammates came and went. Bruno remained a constant. Whether as captain or not, his influence never faded. He organized. He pushed. He carried frustration openly, not because he wanted attention, but because he refused to accept mediocrity. And slowly, something became clear. Bruno Fernandes wasn't built to be loved universally. He was built to compete. His time with the Portuguese national team reflected that same identity. Not always the star of the poster, not always the headline, but always present in the biggest tournaments, delivering goals, assists, and leadership when Portugal needed structure and urgency. He wasn't there to decorate the game. He was there to decide it. As the seasons passed, his career formed a clear pattern. At Novara, he learned survival. At Udinese, he learned discipline. At Sampdoria, he learned confidence. At Sporting, he learned dominance. At Manchester United, he learned responsibility. Each club added a layer. Each league hardened him. And now, years into his journey, Bruno stands at an interesting crossroads. He's no longer the overlooked talent, no longer the surprise package, no longer the new solution. He's the standard, and standards are judged harshly. Every season now is measured against his own past, every performance compared to his best version. Every mistake magnified because expectation never sleeps. Yet even now, one thing hasn't changed since his earliest days in Portugal. He still plays with urgency, like someone who remembers what it felt like to be ignored, like someone who knows football gives nothing for free, like someone who understands that careers are defined not by talent, but by what you do when the pressure refuses to leave. So the question isn't whether Bruno Fernandes was successful. That answer is already written. The real question is something deeper. When the noise fades, the systems change, and the spotlight shifts. How will football remember Bruno Fernandes as a creator, a leader, a risk-taker, or the player who carried responsibility when others looked away? Time does not forgive players who live on memories, and Bruno knows this very well. That's why every new season for him is not a defense of the past, but a battle against decline. As the years passed, at Manchester United, the challenge was no longer proving his talent. Everyone already knew it. The real challenge became consistency inside chaos. Managers change, tactical plans shift, projects begin and never fully end. And at the center of all this, Bruno was asked to do something almost impossible: to be the solution, no matter how the problem changed. Sometimes he's asked to be a classic playmaker, sometimes a pressing machine, sometimes a psychological leader before being a footballer. And very often, all of that in the same match. Here lies the paradox. The more chaos grows around him, the sharper he becomes. Bruno doesn't play well in a vacuum. He is a player who needs conflict, needs resistance, needs to feel that every pass will be judged and every decision has a price. That's why some see him as tense. That's why others see him as emotional. But the truth is simpler and harsher. Bruno doesn't know how to play without weight on his shoulders. In many matches, when others disappear, when courage fades, when the team becomes afraid of mistakes, he is the first to take the risk, because he knows that a mistake made with courage is better than the right decision made out of fear. Over time, his image became clearer. Not a perfect player, not a calm one, not an easy one to love, but an honest one. Honest in his reactions, honest in his frustration, honest in his desire to win. And this type of player is rarely understood in the moment, but deeply appreciated after he's gone. Look at his international career with Portugal. He was never the shadow and never the decoration. He was the bridge between generations, between heavy names and even heavier expectations. In major tournaments, when Portugal needed a mind to organize the game and a man who wouldn't hide in difficult moments, Bruno was there. Maybe he didn't win everything. Maybe he never received the full media aura. But his presence was constant, and consistency in modern football is a rare currency. Today, when you look at Bruno Fernandes' entire career, one thing stands out. He was never the pampered player, never the protected project, never the star excuses were built for. He was always the player asked to do more and forgiven less. And yet, he continued. Because he understands something fundamental. Football doesn't remember silence. It remembers those who carried the burden. Years from now, when the pages close and the small details fade away, the question won't be, how many passes did he miss? How many chances did he waste? There will be only one question: who was willing to carry responsibility when others were looking for escape. And there the name Bruno Fernandes will be mentioned. Not as the most elegant player, not as the most comfortable one, but as a player who chose the hardest road and walked it to the very end. Because some players are not measured by applause, but by the pressure they stood under and did not break.